Hello, everyone. I'm here joined by a good friend of mine, Only Good Games. He's somebody who's a super, super big fan of the expanded universe, has tons of knowledge, and is a huge collector as well. So I'm super excited to have him on the channel and just to chat about the expanded universe for a little bit. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I really
Yeah, for
appreciate it.
sure.
And I watch your channel, every single video you post. Obviously, me and you, for the people not watching, we talk like all the time. So yeah, I'm very up to date with everything you do. But as you know, huge fan of what you're doing, and I just appreciate you having me on. And hopefully, everybody enjoys our conversation.
Yeah, I think it's a an important topic. A lot of I'm sure what we have, and I'm sure a lot of individuals have thought about the topic that we're gonna talk about. But yeah, you and I definitely we talk and speak about the expanded universe a lot for hours, you can say. So that's why I'm super excited to have you on. And yeah, so the topic is, what if expanded universe legends never continues? And the reason why I started thinking about this topic is because it's been 11 years
Mhm.
since it was discontinued, the expanded universe, and Disney went ahead and did their thing with their own timeline. Now, rightfully so, but all we want is to have a parallel timeline and have certain stories that were planned to go ahead and play out. That's kind of my wish, you can say, for it to
Right.
happen someday. But then just being realistic, what happens if I like to be optimistic about things. But what if it doesn't continue? What if it
Mhm.
doesn't continue? Is it something that we would recommend to somebody still? Is it something that's still enjoyable? So yeah, that's a couple of things that we want to discuss because it has been quite a while. And I thought besides 2019 Marvel 108, I thought that they were going to go ahead and continue the storyline in some way, give us little nuggets here and there, but as of now, we really haven't had an official release of a continuation of that storyline, that amazing storyline that we love and collect and spend a lot of time and a lot of money on. But I know you're somebody who collects rare parts of the expanded universe, and that's why I enjoy talking to you because you have so much knowledge about that.
Oh, well, I appreciate that, man. You collect also. You've had a tragedy, unfortunately, strike you, and just about right now. I know you're rebuilding a lot, but you've got a lot, man, already. And obviously right now with just the progress of getting everything back together. I know you can't show it as much, and I just want to say I appreciate you always getting out videos. I don't know if people know your situation about how you had a fire. Pretty much take everything you have, and you built everything back up over the years. And man, a lot of people wouldn't be able to do that. So, and for you to keep videos coming out the whole time too, that's a lot, man. So respect. So
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It's somewhat talking about Star Wars or something that we things that we enjoy. It's, you can say it's sort of therapeutic in a way. You know what I mean? It's an escape. It's an escape. Just
right.
like getting into books or music or records or whatever. It's just something that makes us feel good. So yeah, definitely just trying to rebuild the collection as of right now. But yeah, it's something that even though it was discontinued, I wanted to have the entire collection once again. So that's a thank you for
Exactly.
bringing that up because it goes along with that point of how important this is to both of us, the expanded universe, and how even though it hasn't continued as of now, we're still out looking for the next thing that we don't have in search of it. So it's kind of all in good fun as far as collecting. But I know that Disney Lucasfilm has thrown, I would say, nuggets at the EU Legends fan, and as far as the ELCs, the omnibus collections, which is something that I appreciate. I would say the Mara Jade lightsaber that recently
Yeah.
came out that has the Legends logo. I think that's something that I really appreciate. That they're,
Mhm.
like it or not, they're the owners. We're under that umbrella, but
Exactly.
they could be not producing or reprinting these
Mhm.
items, but
Right.
yeah. So as far as if it doesn't continue, if the expanded universe never continues, how would you feel about that?
I mean, I feel like I'd feel right now. You know, I think me and you both have we've had it set in so long that we've kind of come to terms with it. You know, so if it doesn't ever continue, I'd be very sad. But I've been very sad before. You know, when I first finished reading through Fate of the Jedi, and then got to Crucible and wasn't too pleased with that, and really didn't even give it a chance because I was just kind of so upset that the story wasn't going to continue, and it ended on such a major cliffhanger that it was just crushing. Still is crushing if you really think about it. But I try not to dwell on it so much because I personally am all about looking towards what we're gonna do. You know what we're gonna do with the future. And as we talked about collecting, and I've read there's so much stuff I haven't read. So I've got which I'm not one of these people that I'm just satisfied with what we have. I think the expanded universe could go forever, and I think that I wish that it would come back with the original vision and writers it was headed towards. I'm not opposed to new people working on the expanded universe if they're studied in it and they actually have done their due diligence and are real fans that actually care about it. I would be down for a continued expanded universe as long as it was you know kept under the same direction. Sword of the Jedi trilogy, we still got that and what was actually planned, and it wasn't just some new uh you know creation that wasn't in line with what we actually had going before the discontinuation. So that's pretty much my thoughts. That's and I my main thing, I actually thought about this before we started. The main thing I would want at this point is all the abridged audiobooks that are not unabridged, that have the full stories. That's the only thing I really want right now. I mean, I want the you continue Sword of the Jedi, but realistically right now, the main thing I think people need to be rallying for is for all the abridged audiobooks that aren't unabridged. They need to be unabridged because there's some people that maybe they have a disability, they can't read, or maybe reading's not their thing or whatever. These audiobooks are like movies, and they're theatrical. They're, to me, the best way to experience the stories. If we don't have them on the big screen, so this is the closest thing to it. So I wish that more people would uh, get into the audiobooks, give them a chance, and rally for them, because we need the new Jedi Order unabridged. We need Legacy of the Force unabridged. It's just criminal that we don't have them. So, yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah, you bring up so many good points, so many great points. And talking about the audiobooks, I believe you got me into the audiobooks as well. So currently I'm going through even though I read them in the past, going through the Darth Bane trilogy.
Yeah,
And yeah, you're right, it is theatrical with all the sound effects. And typically I like to have the physical, just a physical item. But these audiobooks, yeah, I agree with. They really put their work in that. A lot of effort, a lot of care goes into it, but definitely touching on that point, I really do feel they should work on that as far as New Jedi Order. I can't believe it
I know.
hasn't been unabridged. That's
Right.
crazy to me. I feel that's peak Star Wars EU in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
And Legacy of the Force, yeah, definitely. And even like they're becoming obscure. The like Young Jedi Knights, Junior Jedi
Exactly. Yeah.
Knights,
Yeah. I agree.
so stuff like that. But
Mhm.
yeah, in terms of if it doesn't continue, I feel that I've kind of exactly like what you said, I kind of come to terms that okay, maybe it won't, I don't want to be just wishing and waiting and what if it never happens, and that's a big
Yeah.
possibility. It's a
Hmm.
big possibility. I want to keep my hopes up, but then again, I want to be satisfied with what we have, which
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that we do have, as you know, we have a lifetime of content. And that's kind of
That's
the
right.
point I wanted to bring up, because there's so much out there in expanded universe in the timeline that we can enjoy throughout for years. Like I said, it is literally a
Yeah.
lifetime. And if there's somebody watching that you're barely or just interested in getting into Legends or expanded universe, don't let us make you feel like overwhelmed or anything like that. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
once you run across a timeline and everything's organized, and you see how everything lays out, it's easy to follow. It's very
Right.
easy to
Exactly.
follow.
I agree.
But yeah, there's so much to enjoy. I mean, thousands of years before the movies, we have stories on that, and then hundreds of years later on. So definitely, even though there are, as you mentioned, um, unfortunately, cliffhangers, I
Right.
feel that the expanded universe, that Star Wars Legends, is something that it's still enjoyable. I would still recommend it because there's so much
Definitely.
lore. It definitely enhances, as we've mentioned in so many times, it enhances the movies and literally expands on them. So, yeah, after all this time, I'm like you. I think I've come to terms. And if it ever happens, if they run a parallel storyline or a timeline, um, along with their Disney timeline, Disney Star Wars timeline, that would be great for them to announce, hey, we're gonna go ahead and finish this storyline up, and
Right.
that would be something amazing that I feel would make a lot of people happy
I agree. I agree.
for sure. So it is a little bit heartbreaking, as you mentioned, that certain things were just left, but yeah, I mean, I would like one of the storylines I would like is sort of the Jedi things that were planned
Right.
and never came to fruition. I mean, there are some videos, there's authors talking about it, and we were like this close to get it, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen. But I mean, obviously the idea is there, and you never know. You never know. It might, but yeah, I mean, it is something, a topic that I feel that we do think about. We do talk about it often, and
Right.
I do hope that it'll continue one day because it is super. I mean, I enjoy it. We enjoy it, even though there's, yeah, certain cliffhangers and gaps. For example, Sword of the Jedi was planned, and the gap between Crucible and Legacy, that era right there, that just needs content to
I
kind
agree
of
very
enjoy.
much.
I feel, because Crucible, since you mentioned that book, something that comes to mind is that it wasn't meant to be the end all.
Mhm.
It wasn't written for that purpose. But that's when they kind of, around that time frame, they kind of, well, not that they actually discontinued the expanded universe. So yeah, I mean, you never know. That's what I feel about it. I mean, there is a little glimmer of hope. I'm not gonna lie, but if it doesn't continue, it doesn't continue. What are some storylines that you would, even though you want pretty much everything that was um, gonna be produced? Um, what's one thing that you feel that is most needed in filling in those gaps?
I would say, hmm, I'm just trying to think of an easy way to put it. I guess pretty much everything that was left over with Luke, as far as his story is concerned, after Fate the Jedi, Vistara, uh, his son, Luke's son, that is. Um, to me, that's the type of stuff that keeps me up at night wondering, and as a fan, it just drives me crazy. And I mean, there's many other things. I mean, there's so many different things. I mean, it's hard to just. I'd like there. I know for one thing, off topic of, you know, pros kind of what happens to Luke and filling in that gap, like you said, between Fate the Jedi and Sword of the Jedi era to the Legacy comics. Uh, is there was other stuff that was planned that's not in that same period that I think would have been really interesting. That there was like I think it was a standalone Darth Sidious book that I believe Troy Denning was going to work on, and I think that would have been really interesting because who knows what that would have been about. It could have been about anything. And then there was there's supposed to be something that I'm not for sure. I would assume this was after Sword of the Jedi. I don't want to, say for certain anything because I don't know. But there was supposed to be, I believe, in like Anzadi uh, set of books. I can't remember if it was Troy Denning or if it was uh, I think it was Troy Denning. I think Troy Denning was working on that, and I believe it was a Darth City, a standalone book. That's what people have told me before. We're kind of in the know. I don't know. I could be wrong. Somebody in the comments, correct me, but I'm pretty sure that was being. And I know for one thing that I'm crushed, me, because I love the character of Vistara Kai because I find her such an interesting and such a heartbreaking character. I've always said that she's like, I've said this to other people that she's almost like Anakin Skywalker too. Like if you follow her story, like it's such a just crushing and just heartbreaking story. And just her story got left on such a cliffhanger. That's another thing too. Like her story and Luke's story to me are such interesting to just wonder and know about. I mean, same with stuff with like how Abeloth was actually we're not going to say defeated, but we can just say postponed. Like what did they actually, how this worked out, and how Luke's death came about, which is another thing. I know I'm going off on random stuff here, but
No, that's good though.
that's the type of stuff I want to know. I don't, and I'll just be honest. I've never really been a fan of the Legacy comics because I liked the mysteries and the cliffhangers from Fate the Jedi, and I always personally felt that the Legacy comics, it just didn't mesh well with how that ended. So I've always wanted to have a a better story written to connect these better and fill in all the gaps. And I definitely think you could do it. It's definitely possible. And I know if the EU had continued, they would have done it. I'm sure with Sword the Jedi and the books I'm talking about with well, I didn't mention it, but there were supposed to be some more books about Vistara Kai. Uh, Christy Golden had talked about doing that was supposed to be like a Joan of Arc. I believe it was supposed to be a trilogy of Vistara Kai that was supposed to take place after Sword of the Jedi. So I found that really interesting because uh, from what it sounds like she would have survived through the Sword of the Jedi events, and I've seen some people theorize that her and Ben Skywalker have kids later, and if you look at the timeline, it seems as if they did, but we never had that conclusion. And Vistara did betray the Jedi at the end, kind of at the story. Not to spoil it for anybody, but she kind of did betray them at the end. Kind of went off, on rogue, and that's what the cliffhanger was. Is because she had turned her ways and became a Jedi, and then she had to turn her back on them, which it's hard to explain for anybody who hasn't read it. So she's not just fully evil, but I would have loved to see that Joan of Arc series because to me it sounds like she would have really proved her worth as a Jedi in that series. I don't know if they were going to kill her off. I don't know if that's what that meant, calling it that type of series. I would hope not because I felt like she was a good character, but I mean, whatever they have planned, I'm all for it. But we may never get it now. But that's my point. There's things like that, and there's so much other stuff that I'm sure you have plenty of things, and as our group of people we talk to and have friends with, there's so many different stories that were like canceled or started or possible. It's just yeah. I mean that's yeah. There's so many things, and I'll always wonder, but it's like you said, we just have to appreciate kind of what we have. And I don't mean that in like, there's some people that just say, well, we're not taking, when they decanonize the expanded universe, they say, well, we're not taking your books. You still got all your books. I'm not one of those people that say that agree with that. I want new stories. I think it could continue forever, but I do think we should appreciate what we have because it's endless. And not to scare anybody new who's watching, but it's easy to get in the expanded universe. You don't have to know everything today. You can just pick up any series you like, whatever character you think is cool. That to be Darth Bane, Darth Plagueis, whoever you like. You be a Jedi, whoever you like. Just go in and start it and get into it. That's the best thing you can do.
Yeah, exactly. No, you bring up amazing points, and yeah, the cancellation of things that were already planned. It comes every time I think about that. I'm like, why? Why did they cancel it? I mean, I know they wanted to do the under new management or ownership. They wanted to do
Yeah,
their own thing. Like I said, rightfully so. That's all good. But it's mind-boggling to me why they haven't really had a alternate timeline and continue what
I
was
agree.
kind of already in the books. For example, as you know, we talked about it before. That I'm playing Knights of the Old Republic, the video game, for the first time and almost
Yeah,
done. Um, and from what I don't know anything about KOTOR 2, but from what I hear, I could be mistaken that there was a Knights of the Old Republic 3 planned
yeah,
also, and Force Unleashed 3.
yeah.
That was planned too because part 2 ends up in a cliffhanger
Right.
as well. So that was planned, and yeah, and then just beyond Fate of the Jedi, and I would have liked to see Luke how he, in other words, when he died.
Exactly.
We do see his spirit in Legacy, which was kind of a shocker the first time I saw it, because seeing him in a spirit form, obviously we know it insinuated that he had passed away, a long time ago. But seeing the way he passed, that would have been something epic as well. I'm sure they would have done it in an epic way because it is freaking Luke
Yeah.
Skywalker. So they would have really put a lot of care into that. Um, but yeah, if it does continue, I wouldn't mind even not that what I care or what I think matters to Disney, but I'm just one of many fans who want this, just like you. But even if they bring one of their new authors as well, as long as like we love this stuff. So as long as there's respect, that's put into this and care,
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind at all. Like that would be awesome. And getting obviously the old school writers and a mix of both and continuing the story overall. But I do feel that it is something that we can, if it doesn't continue, it's something that we can still enjoy. We still enjoy it. These characters, like I haven't read Darth Bane in a while, but I'm hearing the audiobooks, like I mentioned, and
right.
just this character development, like the first book is just an epic journey. And part two and three, they're good books, they're amazing books as well, but just that first Path of Destruction to me is just amazing. So my point of bringing Darth Bane up is how much care went into this character development
Yeah,
with
it
all
did
these
for sure.
amazing characters in Star Wars.
I agree. It definitely did for sure, and I think that that's just a great example of how the expanded universe, it's so big, but there was a lot of care put into it. It definitely was canon. It was licensed as the official continuation. Everything that the writers were doing was the future of Star Wars, and still to this day, they're in Disney's version of Star Wars, they are taking things from the expanded universe, which I'm not a fan of it, but I still think that it shows how valuable the expanded universe is. That these stories that they threw away, essentially, they're still taking inspiration from. So, yeah, I think that whether or not it continues, I'm happy with what we have, and I think that I see it both ways. I want Sword of the Jedi, and I want to know how it concludes. But in part, and in a weird way, I kind of like the mystery. You know, I don't know. It's kind of sometimes the best way to end a story is like that. And that's not what I want. I want to know I want to know what happened. But I think that it was a great story. You know, and I really do just think that if it doesn't continue, I'm still just always on that, just want to know what happens next. So that's a great story. If if forever, I'm always gonna wonder what happened next.
Mhm. Yeah, and I do think you bring something up that's super interesting, that there is a mystery. And you know what? Honestly, there's nothing wrong with it. Yes, we want it to continue, but as is right now, 2025, if it doesn't continue, yeah, there is a mystery, but it's still super enjoyable. Like from Dawn of the Jedi all the way to Legacy 2, there is story there. There's this
Exactly.
amazing content that flows well. There's just certain parts of it that has, yeah, sort of, that has some cliffhangers, but it still doesn't ruin the overall
I
experience, is what
agree.
I'm trying to say.
I agree.
Because it's like comparing it to like a TV show that has all these episodes, you're all into it, and then all of a sudden it stops. It doesn't feel that way to me. The expanded universe, reading through the expanded universe timeline, it doesn't feel like, oh, that was it, like what happened.
Yeah.
And no, there might be some moments like that, but overall the whole experience just doesn't feel like a canceled, discontinued TV show,
Right.
because there's so much epic things that happen and so many years of content, like you brought up. As far as the official canon or official continuation, you're right, because I believe when Heir to the Empire came out in 91, the the store displays advertising it, mentioned that it was the official continuation of the Star Wars
Exactly.
trilogy back then.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, it was a continuation, and it felt that way, and it feels that way.
Matter of fact, I got something right here in the background. I'll show you.
Yeah.
This is the Jedi Prince series, right? And what does
Mm.
it say?
Yeah, the adventure continues.
The adventure continues. So I'm sure that this probably does not show up that good on camera, but I just wanted to show that because no matter what anybody says, guess what, guys? The adventure continued. So I don't know what to tell you guys. That's all I know.
Yeah,
So
no, no, I got you. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it is the story that flows well with the movies, that contributes to it, that expands on it.
yeah,
And that's a debate that people have. And I feel people can think what they want. Individuals are they have the right to do that. But I mean, it was labeled the official continuation when
definitely.
the Thrawn trilogy came out. So it is, but there's nothing wrong with having, two timelines, you know, so it's
I
just mind-boggling. It's more money, there's a demand for it. A lot of people want this, and it's something, if Disney were to hear you, what would you ask, or what would you tell them, and how, what approach would you take as far as, like, you know, the your desire for the EU to continue?
I apologize. That last part kind of broke up. I think we had some
Oh yeah, yeah,
connection
no, no
trouble.
problem. So
Sorry about
just
that.
in case by some miracle Disney heard you out, you know, hypothetically, and
Right.
you know that you wanted to express as far as you know, the continuation of the expanded universe, what approach would you take, and what would you tell them or ask them?
As a pitch for them, or like what would I do
Yeah,
immediately?
pretty
Like
much
with things. Okay, so
anything.
I can give you two things. I'll give you my pitch, and then I'll give you what I would do if, like, you know, I had control and I could tell you, oh, this is going to be continued. I guess my pitch would be, oh man, that's a good one. Oh man, I can just tell you I would have to gather up the most heart-wrenching and biggest cliffhangers. I would present it with a marketing plan of how they could do it, and I'd also present it of how they can present this as another timeline. You know, they can still do their Disney thing, even though I don't like it. They can still do it. I have no problem with people enjoying it, and I think if there's two timelines, it doesn't bother me because I know this is the official timeline. You know, I know this was the original Star Wars timeline. It's not debatable that, you know. So for me, that's what I would pitch. I would have to gather up. I can't do it right now because that would be a hard one, you know. But that's a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
future video. That's a good future video idea actually. My pitch to Disney of how, you know, of why the expanding universe should be continued. But basically, I would just gather up all the loose ends and present them a way of how it could continue, and I just try to show them that this is possible. This is not a impossible undertaking to recontinue the story. It's not too much. It's not like a crazy amount of stories that's impossible to understand. You know. So and what I would do if the E was continued, like if I, you know, had say so, or, you know, I was helping or something, I would want, like I said, everything that we spoke about. You know, the all the Troy Denning stuff he was working on, whether it be the Anxiety stuff or the Darth Sidious standalone, I think it was, and he had some other. I think there might have been some other stuff he was doing, but there's a lot more stuff that I can't remember that was being worked on. But Sword of the Jedi is the main thing. I think that's just the ultimate thing, right? You know, but besides that, I mean, there's so many different directions you could go, and I still think the expanded universe could go forever. So I all the time, which this is kind of a odd thing, but I think of news stories. I sometimes brainstorm ideas of what would happen far after, you know, everything, you know, just completely new stories, you know. And I think that's what Disney should have done instead of throwing out the expanded universe, was they should have just went far into the future. And whatever they would have done, it would have, you know, for better or for worse, it would have kept the fan base still together. And, you know, for if they made a good story or bad story, it wouldn't have destroyed everything. You know, it wouldn't, and people wouldn't have, I don't think, been so opposed to whoever they created, whatever they did, as long as they didn't, you know, throw away everything. I do think people would have followed along. I think everybody still, you know. So yeah, I think that the expanding universe needs to come back. I will it happen? We both know, you know, that's who knows, you know. It really, we just don't know, you know. Signs would say no on some levels, but then there are some things like Star Wars the Old Republic being shown on the main stage, you know, with
Mhm.
Darth Malgus this year. That's at the Star Wars celebration, you know, in Japan. I think that's pretty big stuff. I don't know. I still think there are sparks of the EU that are still like wanting to spark a fire. So I'd say everybody who thinks that it's not going to be continued, don't be so sure. I'd say it is possible. It definitely is possible.
Definitely, for sure. And like you said, that the old Republic footage that came out in this past celebration, that's a big deal because it is under expanded universe. It is under
Exactly.
Legends. It's Legends content. And then recently, I know I mentioned it a couple of minutes ago, the Mara Jade lightsaber
Yeah,
that specifically says Legends on it. That's a big deal.
it
That's a
is.
big
It
deal.
is.
You know, and
And it's
I,
not. Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I've heard some people say you were, you know, it's a bad thing to support Disney, and I respect that line of thinking, but at the same time, I think that this is good, and I'm gonna tell you why. And me and you, we already know why. But just for people listening, so this this is literally acknowledging that the expanding universe was canon. This is saying this is the Legends timeline. It's even on the box, and I know they've released tons of other stuff. Legends, they put the Legends banner, which you know I don't like the Legends banner. I don't like my stories being called campfire stories. Dave Filoni campfire stories, whatever. But here's the thing, though. They are acknowledging that this is a timeline. So bear with me. So listen to me. They are acknowledging that this, not you, Eddie, but the
No, no,
people
I got you.
people listening, they are acknowledging that it was canon. So by saying it's legends and by making this Mara Jade lightsaber, this is showing that this timeline exists. Because where would Mara Jade come from if this lightsaber was just some fan fiction story? She came from something, and it came from the Legends timeline. I hate to have to say it. It's the Legends timeline, the expanded universe, whatever you want to call it. Guess what? It's Star Wars. It's the original story. Uh, so I think this is a 100% good thing. I mean, anything that is acknowledging the expanding universe, that is still bringing in that possibility, that is a good thing. And whether they put Mara Jade in Disney's newest show or newest movie next, and that this was all just something to hype it up, I highly doubt it, because the expanding universe, whether people want to admit it or not, is a really niche thing. Like, who people actually like buy the books and actually buy the stuff, and for them to make that saber and it to be selling out how it is, and for it to be getting the hype it is, and for the expanding universe to still be as relevant as now, I think that's just showing them that they should be continued. So not supporting this, I think you should support it, because it is still bringing relevance to the expanding universe. Yeah, we don't like what Disney did to Star Wars. It's absolutely horrible. And for anybody watching, I used to be one of the most, like, fight the fight against Disney type of people. But over the years, I've been into the expanding universe for so many years. I've seen so many different things. I know that we have to work in a smart way to get the expanding universe continued. And I don't want Disney to just continue the EU in some weird way or some nonsense way. But if it was continued in the same direction with some of the same writers and people who actually are studied on the expanding universe, like people we know, and certain people like who are pretty much have a college degree in the expanding universe. So there, I just feel, yeah, it's okay to, despise Disney, but I think people need to really just look at this and look at what it's actually doing to help the expanding universe, So, maybe maybe this will do nothing, and maybe this won't show any interest to the expanding universe. Maybe they don't care, and maybe it's just more money in Disney's pocket. But truly, I truly do believe that this is showing people that the expanding universe is something that is wanted. It's not fan fiction, and it being called Legends and referred to as a timeline, it shows that it exists. It's not fan fiction. So that's my thing. I know I probably went on a small
No, it's
uh,
okay.
thing there, but yeah, I just wanted to say that, because I really I think the Essential Legends collections too, even though the covers are ugly, even though most of the covers are ugly. I won't say all of them, but most of them are pretty bad. And I'll just say this: all the original covers are better, but that's still those books are selling out, and so many new people are discovering the expanded universe from these books. Apologize if you heard that noise. I had a timer in the background, but
No, no
uh,
problem.
point is, so many new people and kids are experiencing these stories. So if you don't support the expanding universe, then you probably here's the thing: if you don't support the expanding universe, you don't want more people to experience the stories. So unfortunately, you're going to have to want people. I'm not talking to you, Eddie. I'm talking to other people either. You're going to have to want people to buy these Legends labeled books and figures and Mara Jade lightsaber, because this is showing that the expanding universe should be continued. And this may be the one of these things. I'm not for sure what it was, but will be. Maybe the Mara Jade lightsaber could be Star Wars: The Old Republic still being in such a high regard and being shown at the main stage. I don't know. I think the expanding universe could come back anytime. So I just want to say that, yes, I feel everybody, but we gotta work towards the true goal, which is getting the expanding universe continued. So that's that's my TED talk.
No, yeah, no, I appreciate there is obviously you're a very somebody who's very passionate about this. You love this, you love the whole timeline, you love the expanded universe, you love Legends, and no, I appreciate your words, I do. And we all love Star Wars our own way,
Right.
and um I understand, like you mentioned, and I'll talk about that. You mentioned individuals who, and I've interacted with them who are really, who don't want to put money in Disney's pocket by
Right.
supporting this. And you know what? Who, if you're, I feel you. I get it. I
Exactly.
completely
Yeah. Exactly.
understand if you're um, an individual who's upset about that. I have been there. I get
Exactly.
it. I wanted to, and yeah, back then I boycotted all everything I said. That said legends on it. I think I told you my story on
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yep.
because it was
Exactly.
almost to me like an insult when
Yeah.
that first happened. And I mentioned to you that I boxed up my Star Wars books kind of to an extreme. I put everything away because that's how sour I was, and I didn't want. But throughout the years, it thanks to, and this we don't throw shade here at all. Everybody's if Disney canon, you're welcome here. We embrace everybody, But if you're somebody who's curious about the expanded universe as well, that's awesome. But my point was that um if yeah, that I definitely understand somebody who's upset and doesn't want to do that. I support that as well, that point of view. It's what you feel. Nobody can tell you to not be upset
Exactly.
or anything like that, but then again, I do see your point that if none of these ELCs or omnibus or lightsabers sold, like they didn't sell any of them or just very few, I feel there'd be a less, this is just my opinion, my humble opinion. I feel that there would be a less chance for Legends to continue because
I agree.
because that company is interested mainly in one thing. In the George Lucas era, that was his passion. Even though he didn't write these amazing books, it had his name on it. So, he authorized these books.
Exactly.
And yeah, yeah, exactly. So, I feel that if like me, yeah, I'm gonna purchase them. That's just my conscious decision. And well, some of the ELC, some of them I just can't because of the artwork. I can't get down with that with some of them. But a lot of them that I find okay, that these look pretty cool. I want to support that because the more I support it, I feel there might be, this might be a crazy way to think, but it just shows them that there's a market for this,
Yeah.
and there's a better chance they see, oh wow, this is something that we can benefit from if we sell legends or if we create an alternate timeline. I feel there's more of a chance for us to get more stories if we buy things that have legends on it. And I'm not
I
promoting
agree.
or telling anybody to go do this or go do that, but that's just, like I said, my humble opinion, and I'm gonna keep buying it. That's just me. That lightsaber, you and I bought one. The first wave, I believe, sold out in less than 24 hours. I mean, come on, what does that
Yeah.
say?
Yeah.
She's a
Exactly.
super
Yeah.
popular character. And then the second wave, the one that you and I
Mhm.
bought, um, that sold out too. I checked on it. Remember, I texted you
Right.
or I sent a message saying, wow, it's already sold out. So there is definitely a market for this. People love this. People love these characters. Also, I can be wrong, but the Dash Rendar, I heard, I don't know if it's true or not, that the pre-order sold out also.
Yeah. I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's crazy. It hasn't even came out yet.
Exactly. I
So
think there's so many good things that are. I'll put it like this: there's a lot of bad that happens, right? So it's hard to see the good, you know. But
yeah,
I do think that there are sparks, and those sparks could lead to a fire. So I'd say everybody, just be strategic. Work with people you don't wouldn't always work with to get to the finer goal, just like a Sith would, because sometimes you have to put up with certain things, do certain things to get to a goal that and that's what people need to, I think, realize. And like I said, everybody can do what they want. If
yeah,
I think if you absolutely hate Disney, and I'll say it, I do hate Disney. There's so much about their stuff that they've done that I absolutely just, with a passion, could go on a 24-hour rant, probably, just a never-ending rant. But I've had so much time of being an expanded universe fan and loving the expanded universe that I just have literally just like pinpointed my focus on what needs to be done. And while I despise a lot of what Disney does and has done, I do recognize that they could bring back the expanded universe. And I think that they're, like I said, just there's so many things that are pointing to how popular the expanded universe is, that it just doesn't make sense for it to not come back in a way. You know, I'm not saying that I think it's going to come back tomorrow or something like that, but I don't know. Any day it could be announced. I'm not even gonna lie. I thought even maybe this year it could come back at the Star Wars Celebration. I was thinking, you know, there could be, I don't know, they could just announce a second time, you know, the expanding universe and say we're gonna, you know, feed both because as other people have talked about before, there's this the anime, I guess you'd call it in the Disney that's Visions, and it's not even it's its own timeline too. So they've already got a second timeline going over there. This is just the original timeline that was discarded because for some maybe they didn't want to pay royalties, maybe they thought for some wild reason that they could create a better version of what happened. I don't know why they actually threw out the expanding universe because all they literally had gold. All they had to do was plug it in and fill in and make the movies of what was already written down in the books. They had all the scripts already pretty much written and everything. They It was so easy. It was so easy. All they had to do was go to the future. And I will even say this on record that if they had created, let's just say a you know a character that you know we all, I'm not gonna say everybody, but most people I know, we don't like anything Disney has done. But if they had done that in the future after the expanding universe, I'm pretty sure all of us would have just dealt with it. We'd have been like, you know what, we don't like that, but it is what it is. Whatever. You know, if it was as bad as it was in this timeline of events we are in real life, you know. But basically what I'm saying is, yeah, just I am I'm over the hurt, you know, and the scoring stage, and I'm in the let's take action and let's work from within and let's play the long game with this thing. So that's where I'm at. You know, you gotta, like I said, be down to work with some people you may not always wanted to, and do think, you know, just remember the greater goal in mind.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree, and thank you for saying that. I completely agree with you as far as being strategic. Everybody to each their own, and those who are upset and don't want to contribute or don't want to buy new things that are coming out, hey, all power to you,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
I
I
respect
respect
that
it.
because those are
I
your
respect it.
emotions. What you
Yeah.
feel is important, and that's all good. Me, as an individual, I will continue to buy the omnibus and the ELCs and things that come out, the lightsaber, anything Legends Dash Render that's going to come out, and that's a celebration for me. That's a win. Like the Prince Caesar that came out a couple of months ago, I believe. I got that, and I'm gonna try to track down Dash Rendar, and
Yeah.
I remember a couple of I don't know how long ago it was released, but they released a expanded universe E-wing, the miniature version,
Mhm.
and I haven't gotten that. So there's things I want to track down. My point is that the people love this expanded universe Legends. We're not asking for, and it's been stated and by different individuals as well. We're not asking for Disney to oh, screw their timeline and whatever. No, nothing like that,
Right.
because there's people who love that, and I
Right.
don't want them to feel what you and I feel or have
Mm.
felt, that that's taken away. No, it's just awesome that they have a timeline that and have a passion for these stories that are coming out and movies that are coming out, and there's fanatics of that. That's awesome. But all we're asking is just a parallel timeline where
Exactly.
we can enjoy, and I mention this all the time, like Christopher Nelson says, more Star Wars for everybody. It's just something to celebrate, and we all love it in our own way. But it is mind-boggling that, or why it hasn't been continued. But if it never continues, we have an amazing source of material, amazing characters. Apart from the movies, some of the actually my favorite characters are not even from the movies. They're actually from the books and the
I agree.
comics.
Same here.
So yeah, yeah. So it's just a big, huge universe. The movies are awesome and everything, but just you really fall in love with these characters from the movies even more. And apart from that, the expansion, the other characters like Margie, like we mentioned, and Dash Rendar and Bane and all these other ones. But yeah, definitely, I'm glad that I have the collection that I do. I have the storyline. You have it. You're a collector, and if it never happens, that's still the timeline. And like you said it perfectly, there is just this mystery about it that that's just the way it is as far as the story. That there's some
Yeah.
mysteries that we never got to see addressed, and to be played out in fruition.
Right.
And if it never happens, it never happens, and it's extremely uncool, but at the same time, I'm still enjoying it. I'm rereading books, and like we have a lifetime of material. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's kind of my take on that.
I agree, man. I think that's sums it up. I think that's perfect. And I think also just the last thing I'd add too is I there's some things, right, that are left on such a cliffhanger that it feels like criminal not to know the answer to. But then there are some things that I think maybe it's not, maybe sometimes it's good to leave some mystery. Maybe we don't need to know everything. I've heard that before too, about certain things like, oh, we don't need to know absolutely everything. I'm not saying just leave big gaps open. No, that's horrible. But I'm saying, sometimes there are certain mysteries that are good to keep people's mind flowing and keep the theories coming and keep things, but like for Sword of the Jedi and stuff like that, I think we deserve a conclusion. So that's what I'd say on that. Please, if anybody ever listens to this that it will actually listen what I have to say, then Sword of the Jedi is where we're starting back up at, and we're just gonna keep on rolling from there. Never an end in sight to me. So
Was that supposed to be a trilogy? I forgot. It's been so long.
Sword of the Jedi was supposed to be a trilogy, to my knowledge. Like I said, I always want to say in the videos, whatever I say, I could be wrong because I'm not perfect. So anybody listening, I could be wrong about anything I've said here. So if I am wrong about anything I've said in the video, I apologize, but not perfect. But yeah, I believe that was supposed to be a trilogy, and I believe I'm not for sure when that Vistara Joan of Arc. Uh, I think that was supposed to be a trilogy as well. I don't know when that was supposed to take place. I don't know if it was supposed to be like immediately after Sword of the Jedi or what, but yeah, there was a lot of stuff coming. Seriously, I think a lot of people don't know that, that there was actually a lot in the chamber. And I don't know, I don't know if people have seen these videos of some of the last conversations from the from the writers of what was going on at the end, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it just makes you almost cry inside hearing how much good stuff was on the way. So
So
I
many
like I
good
said though, I
ideas.
don't say that with a I don't, and right now I'm not saying that sad. I'm saying that like there could be a continuation in the future, and I still feel this way. So all those stories, I still have hope in here, that one day I do think that the expanding universe could be continued. And whether it's in the way we want it to, I do think that there's too much potential there for them just to leave it alone. I think someone one day is just gonna gonna do it.
Yeah, hopefully somebody there proposes it, and shows them the numbers of how this is something that's lucrative and can keep going, and hopefully they have a change of heart.
I agree.
My curiosity is, what do they feel about the expanded universe? There has to be some love or some type of interest because of all the reprint. They don't have to. That's the way I see it. They don't have to reprint these books. They don't
Yeah,
have to
exactly.
reprint these. That could have just been, lost, you can say, and never reprinted again, and newer generations wouldn't be able to discover it, and that would be a shame. But they are reprinting it, and I mean, whether we like the covers or not, that's debatable. Some of them I don't. We've talked about that, but the point is that they're investing in it in a small way, I can say, but that they actually have thoughts in their mind, I'm sure, about legends, about expanded universe, since they're reprinting them and putting out figures that really aren't lost or forgotten.
Right,
They're
right,
remembered. So I think it's any action figure, any ship, any lightsaber hilt that comes out. Um, um, Reproducing the I'm not sure if that's the right word, but the video games, like limited
right,
run
right.
games and stuff, and
Yeah.
some of the stuff isn't forgotten. So hopefully we get this going, in the near future, and if not, then I'm still gonna enjoy this amazing timeline that we celebrate, that we love, that we're just a big you know um big fans of. So that's one thing I admire about you, that you have this amazing collection, and right behind you, so
I
you have things
appreciate that,
that
man.
I don't have, or things that I've never heard of, that you've shown me. So I think that's awesome, that part of the fun is collecting. So there's so much that's involved in the expanded universe. So yeah, so to conclude this conversation, just of what if the expanded universe doesn't continue, if you're a fan that's really upset about the way things are going, we're with you 100%. I mean, we get it.
100%. Yeah.
For sure, and those who love both timelines, all power to you as well. I mean, more stories for you. And those who want the expanded universe to continue under this ownership, that's where we stand. That where we fall in, and I hope it happens one day.
Exactly.
So thanks for watching, guys, and thank you, Only Good Games, for joining here. It was awesome. Always talking, fun talking to you about Star Wars.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate anybody who checked us out. And I hope everybody, whatever you're reading right now, hope you're enjoying it or listening to an audiobook like me. But yeah, see you guys later.
All right, guys, take care.